Hey guys, it's Enter. So we all know the golden age of Hollywood, right? The Bates Motel. Its flickering sign has become a universal symbol for dread, a place where the darkest corners of the human psyche check in, but never check out. The chilling effectiveness of this cinematic landmark rests almost entirely on the shoulders of one man, and the revolutionary work he did to build its proprietor from the inside out. When Anthony Perkins took on the role of Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, he approached it not as an actor preparing for a horror movie, but as a psychologist conducting a case study. For him, it wasn't enough to just learn the lines on the page. He needed to understand the man behind the vacant eyes and the unsettlingly polite demeanor. So he built an entire psychological backstory for Norman Bates, one far more detailed and tragic than the script ever implied. Perkins imagined a lonely, isolated childhood for Norman, one defined by the suffocating, domineering love of his mother, Norma. He theorized about the specific emotional and psychological abuse that would lead a boy to, essentially, stop developing. He even came up with small, specific habits for Norman that would reflect this arrested development. One of his most famous additions was Norman's tendency to nibble on candy corn. It's a detail you never see explicitly in the film, but it was crucial for Perkins. It was a child's treat for a man who was, emotionally, still a child. This deep internal work translated into every aspect of his physical performance. The hunched shoulders, the shy and hesitant smile, the slight stammer that appears when he's under pressure. None of it was accidental. These were the external manifestations of the terrified little boy Perkins had built inside his mind. He saw Norman not as a monster, but as a profoundly sympathetic and tragic figure. Alfred Hitchcock, a director famously controlling of his actors, recognized the depth of Perkins's interpretation and gave him an unusual amount of freedom to explore the character. He trusted Perkins's instincts, allowing this meticulously crafted psychological portrait to unfold on screen, creating a villain who was as pitiable as he was terrifying. This dedication is why Norman Bates isn't just a slasher. He's a permanent resident in our cultural consciousness. Okay. Narrator, Vo. But before we dive into the supernatural, it's crucial to understand another core pillar of the Aykroyd family identity: law enforcement. This wasn't just a passing interest, it was in his blood. His grandfather was a staff sergeant with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, a figure of stoic authority who undoubtedly left a lasting impression on young Dan. This deep-seated respect for order and procedure seems almost paradoxical for a man who would become a founding member of the rebellious, not-ready-for-primetime players on Saturday Night Live. Narrator, Vo. Yet you can see this influence woven throughout his career. From the deadpan delivery of Sergeant Joe Friday in the Dragnet movie to the stoic, mission-oriented Ray Stantz, there's often a character who, despite the chaos, is trying to impose some kind of order. This upbringing provided a grounded, disciplined counterpoint to the wild, otherworldly ideas that were also brewing in the Aykroyd household. It's this unique blend of the rigidly procedural and the fantastically paranormal that makes him such a fascinating figure. One foot is planted firmly in the world of rules and regulations, while the other is stepping into dimensions unknown. Narrator, Vo. Because while one side of the family upheld the law, the other was busy communicating with the other side. The Aykroyd family home was filled with books on ghosts, ectoplasm, and psychic phenomena. This wasn't a casual hobby, it was a multi-generational obsession. His great-grandfather, Samuel Augustus Aykroyd, was a prominent dentist, but also a renowned mystic and spiritualist in the early 20th century, holding seances at the family farmhouse in Ontario. Narrator, Vo. His grandfather, Maurice, continued the tradition, attempting to build radios that could communicate with the spirit world. And his own father, Peter, literally wrote the book on the subject, publishing A History of Ghosts. For Dan Aykroyd, the paranormal wasn't something discovered in a B-movie. It was family history, discussed around the dinner table. This deep, sincere belief system, passed down through generations, would become the bedrock for his most famous creation. Narrator, Vo. When Aykroyd first conceived of Ghostbusters, it was born from this genuine fascination. The gear, for instance, wasn't just movie magic to him. He envisioned it as real, functional equipment. Take the PKE meter, or psychokinetic energy meter. In his mind, it was a legitimate device for sniffing out ambient spiritual turbulence. He based its design and function on the principles of Kirlian photography and electromagnetic field detection, concepts he'd read about in his family's extensive library. Narrator, VO. The same went for the proton packs and the containment unit. His original script was a sprawling, complex, and much darker epic set in the future, filled with dense technical jargon and paranormal theory. It was so ambitious that director Ivan Reitman and co-writer Harold Ramis had to help him ground it in modern-day New York to make it filmable. But that initial draft reveals the depth of his world-building. He wasn't just writing a comedy. He was documenting a profession he believed could, and perhaps should, exist. His passion extends beyond ghosts, too. He's a lifetime member and the official Hollywood consultant for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and has spoken at length about his own sightings and the government's alleged cover-ups. Narrator, VO. This lifelong obsession with the mystical and the unexplained even followed him into the world of high-end spirits. He's also an incredibly successful businessman. Crystal Head Vodka. But again, this is not a simple celebrity endorsement. The brand is a direct extension of his beliefs. The bottle is shaped like a skull to pay homage to the controversial archaeological mystery of the 13 crystal skulls, artifacts that some believe possess supernatural powers or hold ancient, otherworldly knowledge. Narrator, VO. For Aykroyd, the purity of the vodka is paramount, mirroring the purity of the spiritual concepts he champions. The spirit is filtered 7 times, 3 of which are through layers of Herkimer diamonds, quartz crystals that some New Age believers feel have healing and amplifying properties. It's a business venture that perfectly encapsulates the man himself. A high-quality, commercially successful product born from a deeply personal, esoteric, and wonderfully strange belief system. From the RCMP to seances, from Ghostbusters to vodka, Dan Aykroyd has built a career and a life by embracing the fascinating contradictions that define him. To understand the mind of Stanley Kubrick is to understand a system. He wasn't just a filmmaker. He was an architect of worlds, a grandmaster of narrative, and his process was as fascinating and complex as any of his films. This obsessive need for control and pattern recognition wasn't something he developed for the movies. It was fundamental to who he was, and it found its earliest and purest expression in a game played on a simple 64-square board. Long before he ever stepped onto a film set, a young Stanley Kubrick could be found in the parks of New York City, particularly Washington Square Park, not just playing chess, but hustling. For him, it was more than a pastime. It was a source of income and, more importantly, a mental gymnasium. Chess is a world of pure logic, a closed system where every piece has a defined function and every move has a cascade of consequences. It's a battle of foresight, of recognizing patterns, and of exploiting an opponent's smallest mistake. Kubrick wasn't just good. He was a master-level player, and he brought this strategic mindset to every single frame of his filmmaking. Think about it. A director is like a chess player. The script is the opening strategy. The actors, the crew, the locations, they are the pieces on the board. Kubrick would meticulously plan every shot, every camera movement, every line delivery, thinking 10 moves ahead. He wasn't just capturing a scene. He was controlling the entire board, ensuring that every element served his ultimate vision. On the set of Dr. Strangelove, he would famously play marathon chess sessions with George C. Scott, not just for fun, but as a way to connect with and understand his actor. For Kubrick, the logic of chess was a shield against the chaos of filmmaking. It was a way to impose order on an inherently unpredictable art form. This game of systems and patterns wasn't just a hobby, it was the operating system for his genius. And if chess was the operating system, then his unmade masterpiece was the ultimate program he tried to run. This project represents the most extreme, most legendary example of Kubrick's obsessive preparation. It was an attempt to take the logical rigor of a chess game and apply it to the sprawling, chaotic life of one of history's most complex figures. For years, Kubrick was consumed by Napoleon Bonaparte. He saw a man who, like himself, was a master strategist, an outsider who bent the world to his will through sheer intellect and ambition, only to be undone by his own hubris and the unforgiving hand of fate. To tell this story, Kubrick felt he needed to know everything. Not just the key dates and battles, but everything. So he set out to build the single most comprehensive research archive ever created for a film. In his home outside London, he dedicated entire rooms to what became known as the Napoleon Project. He amassed a library of over 500 sourcebooks, sending researchers to scour the globe for every piece of information they could find. But the books were just the beginning. The heart of the operation was a colossal, cross-referenced card catalog system, a physical, analog database that he designed himself. Imagine tens of thousands of index cards, each one meticulously detailed. One set of drawers was organized chronologically, allowing Kubrick to know what Napoleon was doing, and even what he ate, on any given day of his life. Another set was organized by character, with a file for every significant person Napoleon ever met. He had files on the weather for specific battle days, on the uniforms of every regiment, on the architectural styles of the period. He scouted and photographed potential locations across Europe, planning to shoot the battle scenes in Romania, using tens of thousands of soldiers from the Romanian army as extras. He hired a team of 20 assistants and an Oxford historian to manage this mountain of data. The goal was absolute, unassailable authenticity. He wanted to create a film that didn't just depict history, but allowed the audience to experience it as a present-tense reality. The script he wrote is now legendary, a sprawling epic that would have redefined the historical drama. But the project's very ambition became its downfall. After the commercial failure of other historical epics, like in 1970, the studios got cold feet. The budget was astronomical, the scale unprecedented. The Grandmaster had planned every move, but he couldn't control the board of Hollywood economics. The film was never made. Yet this monumental effort was not a waste. The deep knowledge of 18th century life, the photographic techniques he developed for shooting in low light, the entire system of pre-production. It all flowed directly into his next masterpiece. The Napoleon Archive stands as a testament to a mind that refused to compromise. It reveals that for Stanley Kubrick, the line between genius and obsession was not just blurry. It was non-existent. Whether moving a pawn on a chessboard or planning a cinematic epic, the goal was always the same: to see the entire system, to understand every pattern, and to achieve a state of perfect, logical control. Thanks for hanging out with me today.